If you're wondering why so many progressives are mourning Bolton's firing tonight, it's because Bolton himself fundamentally was a man of the left. There was not a human problem John Bolton wasn't totally convinced could be solved with the brute force of government.
So that was Fox host Tucker Carlson claiming that John Bolton was progressive. Proof that we are now living in the upside down. So let me point out who John Bolton is. He is a neoconservative war hawk. He wants to go to war with basically everyone. And look, to his credit, Tucker Carlson points that out. He says neocon, all over, right? But then also says he's also a leftist. He's also progressive. What in the world are you talking about? No. John Bolton is establishment through and through. He's along the likes of Bill Kristol. These are gross guys, right? Who in their right mind would consider him to be a progressive? It's insanity, especially considering how right now being a big part of being progressive is being someone who's in favor of, or against, I should say, war, being anti-war. That's a big part of modern progressivism, right? So now they're not the only ones that are progressive on that issue, or I should say they're the only ones. Not the only ones that are anti-war. You've got libertarians that are anti-interventionist. You've got right-wingers like Tucker Carlson that are anti-interventionist, that are against pointless, ridiculous wars. Right. So now there are many different reasons that you can be anti-war and anti-interventionist, and so it doesn't necessarily fit neatly into one ideology. In fact, that is something that can unite members of the left and the right, the fact that we don't want to go to war in other countries. We don't want to launch Middle Eastern interventionist wars and do nation building and all that ridiculous stuff. So I can agree with Tucker Carlson on the fact that Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, they were terrible. They were awful. What I cannot agree with Tucker Carlson on is that people who launched those wars were progressive. Not at all. No, progressives are anti-war because we care about people's lives. I know it's crazy. We care about the lives of our troops. We care also about the innocent lives that get caught in the middle overseas. We also know that war breeds terrorism. We also believe that the money that's spent on war, that's given to defense contractors, could instead be used here at home to give American citizens free health care, education, and a better standard of living. Well, not only that, but progressives don't believe in imperialism. So now, how in the hell does Tucker Carlson come to this conclusion that, oh no, it's the progressives that are in favor of John Bolton, that it's the progressives that are in favor of endless war? Because to me, that makes absolutely no sense. Well, let's look into it.
International oil prices, by the way, on the international market dropped immediately on the news. Investors knew for certain that Bolton planned on launching yet another Middle Eastern conflict that would inevitably spike energy prices. No doubt some energy speculators were disappointed to see Bolton go. Certainly many people in Washington were disappointed. Senator Chris Murphy, who's Democrat from Connecticut, progressive one at that, tweeted that he was, quote, legitimately shaken to see John Bolton leave the White House. Samantha Power, you remember her, she's the Obama official, primarily responsible, among other things, for the historically catastrophic destruction of Libya, the move that flooded Europe with refugees. That official, Samantha Power, told reporters today that the firing was a very troubling sign. If you're wondering why so many progressives are mourning Bolton's firing tonight, it's because Bolton himself fundamentally was a man of the left. There was not a human problem John Bolton wasn't totally convinced could be solved with the brute force of government. That's an assumption of the left, not the right. Don't let the mustache fool you. John Bolton was one of the most progressive people in the Trump administration. And by the way, naturally, once he was ensconced there, Bolton promoted Obama loyalists within the National Security Council. That shouldn't surprise you either. From the very first day, John Bolton operated as, in effect, a fifth column within the Trump White House.
Progressives, apparently, they love big government, and the military is big government. Got him. Wow, that is a crazy train of logic that you use, Aaron. Oh no, Obama officials. Oh, Chris Murphy's so progressive. Not really. Ain't nobody in progressive circles calling Chris Murphy super progressive. So here's the thing. Here's why Tucker Carlson makes no sense. See, what Tucker Carlson likes to do, and people that are in that circle, right? They point at everybody who is not right wing, and they say, "Look how lefty they are. Look at how progressive they are." When in reality, they're centrist. Now, here's the thing: as for our ideology, right? We don't advocate for big government for the sake of big government. You're thinking of actually people on the right who support the military and who support big government intruding into our lives when it comes to abortion rights, for example, or when it comes to the issue of abortion, where they want big government in people's bedrooms. You're thinking of the right wing who are in favor of that. We're progressives. We think big government can be useful in certain circumstances. It can be a force for good. For example, in healthcare, where right now there are millions of Americans who are dying because our health insurance system is fundamentally broken because it relies too much on the quote unquote free market. So that's a problem. That's actually a problem and which government can solve. And you know what? We already solved it for people 65 or older, and that's how we know it works. It's called Medicare, and it's the most popular government program in existence, along with Social Security. Now, most of Tucker's audience, ironically, are probably on Medicare and Social Security since he tends to skew really old. But anyway, so there's that. Now, we again believe that there are certain sectors of government which are good and can be a force of good, but also there is parts of government that can get too big and step on the very people that they're supposed to serve. That's why progressives are critical of the military industrial complex, the police, civil asset forfeiture, the massively bloated Pentagon budget, and constant military adventurism for oil. These corporations, large companies, large oil companies like ExxonMobil, they will go and they will buy out politicians, mostly from the right. In fact, almost exclusively from the right, but also giving to some centrist Democrats. For example, people like Joe Manchin, who gets lots and lots of fossil fuel money, as well as people like Beto O'Rourke, who also received lots and lots of money from fossil fuel industries and broke his fossil fuel money pledge. Beto O'Rourke ain't no progressive, although he certainly tried to run as one because, let's be honest, progressive positions are actually incredibly popular. So there's that. So what Tucker Carlson is thinking of is perhaps faux progressives or people who are essentially part of the Democratic establishment. Establishment Democrats do support war. They do support the fossil fuel industry. And ironically, they do so not only because they get paid, but also because of the right wing. We spent years and years since September 11th, and before then, of course, during the Clinton administration with the DLC getting lots of power. But you had since 2001 the Bush war machine. And if you went against the Bush war machine in their attacks and wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and all over the world, if you weren't in support of those wars, you would be called a traitor. You would be called un-American. Great example, Dixie Chicks. Dixie Chicks got kicked off country stations because they were against these wars. And you know what? They just tried to get back on country stations, and people are still angry about it. The right wing would smear anyone who didn't vote for endless war as un American. Fox News, the very network that you were a part of, Tucker, spread that smear. And now nearly every Democrat is either afraid of what the right wing will say about them. Oh, you're weak on national defense. You're a terrorist. You want the terrorists to win. Or they take money, they take checks from the defense contractor industry. But the right wing is the one that constantly calls for more military spending. Yes, there are centrist establishment Democrats like Nancy Pelosi that continue to go along with it. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and many of the centrist Democrats that make up the spineless Democratic Party continue to vote for these increases that are spearheaded by Republican politicians. If you are so goddamn anti-war, why would you vote to give over $700 billion to the military every single year? If Donald Trump was so anti-war, why would he continue to ask for more and more Pentagon spending? Tucker Carlson, this is the establishment right working with the spineless corporate Democrats. These people are not progressive. The truth is, there are nearly no progressives in Congress right now. Very, very few of them. They're massively outnumbered by the right wing. And there are no progressives on cable news. We have hacks like Morning Joe. We have like Chris Matthews. There are no anti-war voices on cable news. You want to know why? You want to know why that is? Oh, right, because MSNBC fired them all. They suck. MSNBC, you suck. USA Today, you suck. You're all pathetic. Every single American that's died over in Iraq and Afghanistan because of George W. Bush's wars is partly your fault. Your fault. You, the spineless Democrats, voted for the war in Iraq. The intelligence agencies who lied us into those wars and the media that refused to do their goddamn job and did pro-government propaganda because of the right wing. And of course, the neoconservative party, including John frickin' Bolton. Where the hell were you, Tucker? Were you speaking out of the war against Iraq? Maybe you were. Maybe you weren't. But I do know that you were really busy calling Iraqis semi-literate monkeys. That's what you were doing. That's what Tucker Carlson is about. Tucker Carlson is not anti-war for the right reasons. No, he's a complete and utter racist and a disgusting human being. He doesn't feel like we should waste our resources on war. I agree that we shouldn't waste our resources on war. But I actually care about people. I actually care about not messing up these other countries. What's Tucker Carlson concerned about? Immigration. Oh, I don't want people immigrating from other countries. I don't want them coming here. I don't want semi-literate monkeys in my country. That's what Tucker Carlson believes. He is a white nationalist. And we may agree on being anti-war, but not for the same reasons. And I will not let him lie and smear progressives